Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, appreciate you joining us. We are live here every weekday, and we cover a wide range of topics on this show. Topics and segments, and some of them are just like this one right here. So if you're like me, you probably saw your power bill increase over this year, over January, and that has happened actually several times over the last few years. So one of the things I wanted to look into is how and why those rate increases are approved. What goes into that? That's what this interview is all about. I spoke to Judge Nolan Moser from the Oregon Public Utility Commission. They are in charge with approving rates for an example like PGE, Pacific Power, that when they submit for a rate increase, this is the organization that approves that. I wanted to find out how that works, why things are approved, and what the process really is all about. And that's what this interview is. So please, we'll play this right now, my interview with the judge, and we'll go through the questions and answers that he provides for us. And then after that, I'll actually have a statement from PGE that they provided as well. Let's jump right into it. Thank you very much for today. I appreciate your time and willingness to come on here and talk about this process of how the government works. And I think to start off, can we just have a very base level of explaining what the Public Utilities Commission is?
Sure. Well, first, I want to thank you for having us on. We really appreciate the opportunity to explain that. So the Public Utility Commission is a group authorized by the legislature to examine the rates that private, for-profit, monopoly utility companies charge customers. And our job is to review those rates, ensure they're compliant with law, and that ultimately they're just and reasonable. And we do that through a case process, which I'm happy to talk about.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's what I would love to get into on that side of things, too. Before we do that, could you just let us know a little bit more about your role as a chief administrative law judge in there and how that fits into the entire process?
Yes, it's not very glamorous. My job is to help make sure that our process is consistent with the legal standards that are applicable here in Oregon, that we make sure that the public can effectively participate in our processes. And I also manage a group of judges that handle individual utility cases for our commissioners.
Okay, and this is all part of overseeing, like you mentioned, those private entities that provide those public utilities.
Correct.
And examples are power companies, and I'm assuming there's other ones too that fall under that. Just for for an umbrella idea of that, in addition to power companies, what would some?
Yes, that's right. So we work with investor-owned electric utilities, investor-owned gas utilities, as well as a smaller number of investor-owned water companies, and then we also do some telecom regulation as well.
Fantastic. And talking about, I guess, this specific example, looking at it for electricity rates and increases. So the example being PGE, and I'm using that just because that's one that a lot of people are talking about right now in the additional rate increase. So when a company wants to raise their rates, what is the process for them to apply to do that?
Yes. So what they do first is they make a filing with us, and that filing outlines exactly how much they intend to increase customer costs. And then it also includes their initial justification for it, their argument, their explanation as to why they need to increase customer costs to continue to provide safe and reliable service. After that, by law, we have 9 months to investigate that request. Otherwise, it may go into effect automatically. So it's incumbent upon us to set up a trial-like process, which allows ratepayer representatives, individual members of the public, and customer groups to examine that request from the utility company, really test it, scrutinize it aggressively. Our own staff gets involved. They dig into the filing, identify costs that potentially are not justified. And then all of that is ultimately presented to our commissioners, who then act as judges and decide whether or not that increase will be allowed to go into effect, whether or not it is adequately justified under the law or is just and reasonable in general. And sometimes the commissioners agree to some of those increases. Sometimes they find that the increases have not been justified and are not appropriately explained by the utility company.
And are there some recent examples of that, of a utility company asking for an increase and having that not be approved?
Yes, that is, there are recent examples. Most recently, Northwest Natural came in for a rate increase and had requested a series of expenses get approved that were not ultimately approved by the commission. Those included some costs associated with political activity and advertising, for example. The commission ultimately found that those expenses were not justified.
And again, just to understand the process that you were just walking through there. So you mentioned that a company can say, I want to increase it by a certain amount, and you have 9 months, rather, the Public Utilities Commission has 9 months to investigate that. And if it's not investigated, if it's not disputed, that could automatically go into effect at the end of that 9 months after the request.
That is correct. That doesn't happen. However, we always complete our job and examine these requests and scrutinize them. And I will also note that you don't have to be a lawyer or be represented by a lawyer to participate in these types of cases. We have specific procedures to invite the general public to comment on these increases, comment on these proposals, and the commission takes that very seriously, and they do take those citizen comments and ratepayer comments into consideration when they make their decision. We do that through public meetings, which we will set for the PGE case. You can also go online to our website, and we have a online form, which allows people to offer written comment. And then you can also contact your ratepayer representative. In this case, for residential customers, that is the Oregon Citizens Utility Board. They are the authorized representatives of the residential class in our cases.
Interesting. So people can present their case to the Oregon Citizen Utilities Board, then they will present it to you as kind of the vessel to carry over that information and what the feedback is?
That is correct. That is one of the methods by which we get that customer input.
And for actually, I want to come back to that, just talking about the way that citizens can get involved, especially just as people are understanding exactly how everything works. Looking at the rate increases themselves. Now, you mentioned that you take a look at what the company proposes, you go through it all, and you examine whether you think that's justified or not. And I guess looking at this from the case of PGE over the last 4 years, it's been raised almost 50%, depending on how you look at it. It's close to that amount as far as their rates. So looking at a rate increase of that much, I guess what would the justification be to go into that, to raise the rates that much?
That technically is actually two things. So you have a portion of those costs associated with direct investments that the company made to provide general service to customers. And a portion of that was the cost of power for that year. The cost of power that year went up. And so that combined resulted in the overall increase. And I will say that as part of the commission's determination that that increase was just and reasonable, they had testimony from all the ratepayer advocates who ended up supporting essentially a settlement or compromise position supporting that increase with the utility. So that's how we got there and found that charge to be just and reasonable.
Okay, so it's two different factors that come into there. So a general assessment of the cost of producing energy itself, whatever means that is, and who decides that part actually? Who decides that rate is approved?
Also the commission. So we have individual cases that where you might have the subject of the case being the cost to get the power to a specific location, the cost of transmission lines and distribution lines, and you might have a case that is an annual case that deals just with how much the company pays for power on the open market, for example.
I guess I do have one follow-up question. When you look at some of the things that have happened as far as lawsuits, whatever those may be, and this could, I'm not going to use PGE as just an example, but for any organization, public utility, lawsuit, you look at some of the things that happened after the fires, and if those are costs incurred by the company, is that something that they can then turn around and ask for as far as a rate increase to help cover?
They can, if their actions are justified, if the actions of the utility are determined to be prudent by the commission. And I think, as all the viewers know, utilities have been responding to a whole host of major issues recently that have the propensity to drive up costs. We have increasingly damaging winter storms, we have increasing wildfire, and we have to make investments, or our utilities feel they have to make investments to lessen the risk associated with those events to customers and to the general public. And that costs a lot of money. That results in a lot of new infrastructure that ultimately is part of the cost of providing utility service.
And that's something that will happen over these next several months, since you do have
that is correct. And those ratepayer representatives I mentioned, those that represent the residential customer class, those that represent large customers, industrial customers, they all have an interest in really digging into those charges and making sure that they are appropriately justified.
And you mentioned public feedback as far as, again, just to go back into that side of things, as far as how the public can contribute their opinions on this. And there's the citizens utility board that they can get involved in, but also you mentioned there's public meetings and things. Is that how they can also voice their opinion?
Absolutely. For the PGE case in particular, we're going to have at least one and maybe multiple evening events where the commissioners will be available and will hear directly in real time from members of the public. These are usually virtual events where you can call in, you can get in online and express yourself via video directly to the commissioners and explain how you feel about the proposal from the company. Additionally, we take written comment at any time during the course of this case, and that written comment and that oral comment is summarized by our staff in their testimony to the commission. So it is put directly in front of the commission in a number of different ways, and the commission then considers that as part of their overall review of the request.
And so those are written comments that someone could send in at any time. And is that through the website, or what's the easiest way for people to provide that?
We believe the easiest way is through our website. We have a public comment form on the website. However, we have email addresses that people can send comments to. You can also send comments via mail if that's how you prefer to express yourself. And then, as I said, we'll have these public comment meetings where people can speak directly to the commissioners in real time.
And final question here, just so people out there, if they do want to voice their opinion on this and take a look, can they see exactly what PGE is applying for and where they say those costs go to, or is that something that's not available?
No, it is absolutely publicly available. The case number is UE435, and we have information, or we'll have it up shortly on our website about this case. And in that filing, you can find all of the information that PGE has provided to date to justify their proposed increase.
All right, well, Judge, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate that as far as providing some feedback. And I guess my final question here, just because I know people are going to ask it, we look at like the 18% increase, and it's, again, I'm using PGE as an example just because it's the most prominent ones, the 18% increase for this year. So when you went through that and we're analyzing that and as the commission for the 9 months, you found that to be justified for that 18%?
Yes, in that case, we had a number of groups, including consumer representatives, including the residential ratepayer representative, the industrial customer representative, come together and ultimately support not everything that PGE had asked for, but many of the things that PGE asked for. And the commission reviewed that proposal by all those parties and determined that that was just and reasonable. Of course, this is a brand new case, and the commission is going to review it fresh.
Absolutely. And as we walk through for everyone too, people will have their chance to have feedback on that, to analyze that, and take a look at what's going on. Judge, I thank you very much for joining me here today, just for a frank and honest discussion, to understand how this all works. And I think that's one of the most important things for everybody. So appreciate your time, and thanks for being here.
We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today.
All right, so there we go. That was my interview with Judge Moser. And again, we do thank him for joining us to share that information and explain a little bit as far as how the Oregon Public Utility Commission works. So I did reach out to PGE after this, and they did provide a statement. I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. So You can see it. I'll also read along with it. So what they said was, this is in reference to the 2025 rate review. So there's the increases that they would like for the year 2025 that they have put forward to achieve the day-to-day reliability that customers expect while simultaneously solving for the challenges of the future. Portland General Electric is deploying battery energy storage technology to modernize and strengthen the grid, said Larry Bechdahl. This is the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Advanced Energy Delivery. We are focused on delivering reliable electricity to customers while keeping the cost as low as possible. So this is what they did reply with. I did ask for an interview. They declined, but did provide that statement. So what do you think? Now that you know this part of the process, what are the questions that you have? What more do you want to know? What answers do you want to find out? Please let me know. You can let us know in the comments. You can send me an email, fox12now@kptv.com, because I would like to investigate this a little bit further. I will be reaching out to some other power companies, and I will be reaching out to that utility board that they mentioned, the Citizens Utility Board, to get their opinion on this as well. So we want to find out more about how all of this works. And that's one of the things that we get to do here with Fox 12 Now, is have these longer form interviews discussing how government works. You know, ultimately, it's all of us, the citizens, who are paying the power rates. Is it justified? Is it not? How does it get decided? Those are the things we want to find out here. So please send me an email. Let me know. I'll be happy to take a look into that. And you can always watch all of our segments here from Fox 12 Now. I would suggest downloading the Fox 12 Oregon app, a great way to watch everything that we get to cover here on this show. So thank you for joining us. We'll sign off for right now. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.